gosh, now where am I? Good evening. Buenas tardes. This meeting is now reconvened. The time is 5 p.m. Cadet Sara Solis, who is our Junior Reserve Officer Training, is in our Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps program, will lead the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. Cadet Solis attends Sharpstown High School in District 6. I would like to ask Cadet Solis, I lost my place. I would like to ask District 6 Trustee Kendall Baker to introduce the pledge leader.
My pleasure. Cadet Second Lieutenant Colonel Sara Solis distinguished herself in leadership, academics, sports, and community activities throughout her high school years. She ranked first of 412 with a grade point average of 4.6. Cadet Solis has served as the logistics coordinator for Sharpstown Army, JROTC, 18th Battalion. She has been a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where she has participated in multiple community service activities, such as collecting canned goods, school supplies for those in need. Cadet Solis has participated in varsity volleyball, cross country, and track, and helped Sharpstown win the district championship during cross country season. Cadet Solis has participated in the JROTC Color Guard, Flag Detail, J-Lab, and physical training teams, and has received her Superior Instructor Award and other honors. She accomplished all of this while taking dual credit courses and AP classes, along with a health endorsement class, which offers certification by the time she graduates. After graduating, Cadet Solis plans to attend either the University of Texas at Austin or Baylor University, where she will major in biology and pursue a career in psychology. Cadet Solis.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please rise for a moment of silent meditation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and pledge to the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas Pledge. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cadet Solis. Next, we will hear from a hearing of the community speaker. Please note that we conduct our hearing of the community in two parts to prioritize our students who have signed up to speak. We have one student speaker who shall be limited to 1 minute, as will all speakers tonight in our regular meeting per board policy due to our large number of speakers. Will Clover Ochoa Carroll please come to the podium? It is now time to hear from speakers to specific agenda items. We have 21 speakers registered this evening. Again, each speaker has 1 minute tonight. Please speak to the agenda item you have signed up for. We also ask that speakers stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as their identity is protected under law, but you may name your own child. Speakers should practice normal rules of decorum. If you are demonstrating support for a speaker, you can wave your hands in the air and clap that way. We ask that you refrain from clapping in an audible way. Obscene language and profanity will not be tolerated, as this is a public meeting and our students are watching. Additionally, disruptions of the meeting will not be tolerated. We ask the audience to refrain from interrupting speakers while they present to the board during this portion of the meeting. Our first item held for registered speakers is A1, approval of personal services performed by the superintendent, including speaking engagements, panel discussions, workshops, etc., in accordance with the Texas Education Code, section 11.201E. Will Jackie Abreu Hill please come to the podium? The speaker is also registered to agenda item I4.
Good evening. This whole year, I've heard so many issues from concerned parents and citizens, and yet nothing gets resolved. A mom who called about her daughter sharing a locker room with a boy. 2 mothers whose daughters were sexually assaulted in elementary school. Several of us showing and sharing the language of pornographic books, which, by the way, the process to resolve this issue is not easy and sometimes impossible. Just for us to give up, we're not going to give up. I just hope you know that. And now the district proudly supporting Pride Month and LGBT ideologies. I've seen numerous teachers supporting this over social media. This is grooming. Straight students don't express their sexuality, so why are LGBT students allowed to do so? And now the superintendent to get a $50,000 increase in his pay? I don't think so.
Gabrielle Clark, also registered to I-4.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Clark. I filed the first federal lawsuit against woke indoctrination in America. My daughter goes here now, and I will not tolerate any kind of indoctrination of my daughter at all, period. 3 of those people that Jackie talked about, I found lawyers for this morning. We're done with that. We're done with our children being groomed. We're done with having to deal with boys and girls' bathrooms. We're done with all of that nonsense. Everywhere around this country, people are sick and tired of listening to all of this yakety-smackety about equity and inclusion and all of this nonsense, when we really need to be talking about reading and writing and math. We're done with that. Y'all need to get your budget right. Get this school district right, because we are sick of it. All over the country, we are sick of it. Parents are done with this nonsense.
Next, we will hear from a registered speaker who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom regarding A1. Please remember that if you are signed up to speak via Zoom, we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. If you are watching the meeting live on another device, please mute the meeting audio when you speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. Ms. Trin, please admit Gary Monroe, who is also registered for items B1 and F1 and the hearing of the community.
Mr. Monroe, please turn on your camera. You have 1 minute and you may begin.
All right. They've been having problems with me. I'm trying to get this thing on. It will not allow me to turn my camera on this time, and I don't know why. Need to send me another link. We've been having problems with this link for 30 minutes. Can you guys hear me?
Mr. Monroe, we can hear you. However, we do need to see you. And the only one that can turn on their camera, there you go. We can see you now. Please begin. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I thought this was the Houston Independent School District and not BET Uncut. I know every last one of y'all saw that video that was shot at Booker T. Washington High School. Are you gonna do something about it? Or is it the fact that this principal may be connected to Sheila Jackson Lee and we're gonna let this type of video be shot on our campuses? It's totally inappropriate, and I'm gonna make you a deal tonight. I do rap music too. And if you don't do nothing about that video, I am going to shoot Mr. Superintendent on one of your campuses. You're not going to do nothing to me.
Mr. Monroe, thank you.
Excuse me?
You please mute him, Ms. Trin.
Mute me for what?
We will begin with registered speaker who signed up to, sorry, we already did that, yeah. We will begin with a registered speaker who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom regarding A2. Audience, I will take a recess if we cannot maintain decorum. We'll begin with a registered speaker who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom regarding A2. Ms. Trin, please admit Deadira Arellano. This speaker is also registered to G1.
Madam President, Ms. Arellano is not online at this time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from speakers on A2 who registered to address the board in the auditorium. Will Daniel Santos Will Daniel Santos please come to the podium as I call the next three names? Please take seats on the front row. Retha Thomas, Cynthia Bassard, Autry Haygood.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Daniel Santos, Executive Vice President of HFT, and I rise to speak on item A2. HFT supports the proposed compensation package in which a long overdue 11% pay raise for teachers is included. Teachers and support staff have soldiered and sacrificed through a pandemic, and we are still here. We have weathered years of financial storms, and we are still here. Despite the alarming rise of teacher vacancies, many of us are still here. Board trustees who stand with loyal teachers and support staff need to be transparent with parents and the community tonight. Do you really support us? Do you really mean what you say? If so, your vote needs to be yes, without amending, without diluting, without watering down the compensation package. An unqualified yes should be the only answer tonight from the dais. Thank you.
Retha Thomas, Cynthia Bassard, Autry Haygood.
I'm next.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Retha.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here to stand in support of this budget. I would like to say that HISD administration was very transparent with putting this budget together. We walked with them, they met with us, shared good ideas that we never had before. We never had an opportunity to buy into something. You know, it's just always, take these pennies, take this penny. But I can say this time, they did a good job, and we asking y'all to support it. I was gonna play my song, but I forgot to put it on. I got to say, I'm gonna quit talking about it, they put my song on there. Wait a minute, wait. I got it. Listen.
Thank you, Ms. Retha. Cynthia Bassard, Autry Haygood, Lee Love.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Bassard. I'm a transportation attendant. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for giving us a listening ear on the raise increase. But I also say we have a lot of work to do. And I know coming up, you have to crawl before you walk. But I'm just asking you guys to put it in and please pass this budget because it really helps everybody that works in the district family. And I really thank you. And I'm gonna piggyback off of Rita. Please wake up and pass this budget increase. Thank you.
Autry Haygood, Lee Love, Gerald Thomas.
How y'all doing? Archer Haygood with Transportation, HISD. Again, we would like to thank y'all for considering this budget. We ask and we hope that y'all do pass the budget. It's been a long time coming for HISD bus drivers to be able to get a raise, to even come up to be in a competitive compensation dealing with pay versus other districts. So, you know, we ask y'all to consider that when it comes time to vote and to pass the budget for a pay increase for us, because we've been lacking for so long and we deal with so much, with us being the first faces that the children see every single day before they get their day started. Because we're the ones who actually set the tone for the day for the students before they even go to school.
Lee Love, Gerald Thomas, Sybil Hunter.
Lee Love, Senior Mechanic for HISD. I'm just asking y'all, please pass the budget.
Gerald Thomas, Sybil Hunter, Hector Mireles.
Good evening. My name is Sybil D. Hunter. I've been with Houston Independent School District Nutrition Services for 17 years, and I'm also the Vice President representing our Food Service Department. I want to say appreciation for the new school board actually opening up their ears when we're speaking. HISD says Team HISD. That means everybody, not just one or two specific groups. And your support personnel have stepped up to the plate each and every time, no fail. We've been through winter storms, cold, hot, raining, you name it. We stepped up to the plate and we did our job. We're not asking for a raise. We're saying we deserve it. We deserve it. You're not giving us anything, we deserve it. And I'm asking the board to please pass this budget. And one last thing I'd like to leave you with, we're working.
Hector Mireles, Jackie White Anderson, Amy Maddox.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, board members. I come here today undecided on this budget because we've talked about how much deficit we're in. We've spent no money on trying to get kids back to school to HISD. We've got charter schools stealing our students from HISD. I'm not against any increase that our support staff gets. I support our support staff. I'm the president of our union. The only concern that I have is if we do pass this budget, I don't want us to come back, me and Retha Thomas, 30 days from now or 2 months from now and saying that now we're going to lay off support staff. I'm totally against that. There has been no mention, if this increase passes or this budget passes, that there will be layoffs. That's a concern and an issue that needs to be discussed with you as superintendent and you as board members. Should this increase pass, will there be layoffs? Thank you for your time.
Jackie White Anderson, Amy Maddox, Dr. Claudia J. Morales.
Good evening, trustees, and thank you for this opportunity. Superintendent House and the board, administration, I want to applaud the work you've done on this budget. This will be the largest increase that HISD has gotten in the history. I was here 25 years, so I appreciate the work that you've done. You realize that in order to attract and retain, you're going to have a competitive pay increase. I want you to know, and it might sound cliche, but if you care for students, you have to care for teachers. A teacher's working environment is a student's learning environment. So you have to put your money where your priorities are. And if you want students to learn, if you want students to feel safe and appreciated, you have to do the same thing for staff. I have 3,000 petitions here who are endorsing this budget. Thank you.
Amy Maddox, Dr. Claudia J. Morales.
Thank you. I urge the board to pass the proposed budget. It's not perfect, but it's a big step in the right direction. I see three major positives. One, the compensation package is absolutely necessary. We are bleeding teachers. As a parent, it's terrible to see all the teachers leaving. We must pay a competitive wage to keep our teachers. Two, it's a reasonable compromise among priorities. It maintains the PUA, weighted to give more funds to the most struggling students, and as I understand it, pushes even more Title I dollars to our neediest students. It maintains the administration's goal of putting a counselor, librarian, and nurse in every school, but it also does not destroy the successful educational institutions that we have built to get there. It also allows us to move forward because there's a lot left to accomplish in the future.
Dr. Claudia J. Morales.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Claudia Morales, and I proudly serve as the Houston Federation of Teachers Professional Development Director. Before working for the HFT, I worked for HISD and served in many roles, including bilingual teacher, school administrator, and many others. In my current role, I get to talk to many educators and many teachers. I hear about all they do, all their struggles, and even though it's been very difficult 2 years and a lot of heartache, loss, and pain, teachers continue to focus on helping their students thrive every day. And teachers are there showing up, taking care of their students to the best of their abilities and beyond. I'm here today to ask you to approve the budget. Please approve the budget and help us retain and attract talented individuals that are so needed for our Houston area students. Thank you.
Ms. Trin, is Deadira Ayerana back on Zoom?
She is. We're getting her right on.
Thank you.
Ms. Arellano, please turn on your camera, unmute. You have 1 minute and you may begin.
Good afternoon, President Cruz, Board, and Community. My name is Deadira Arellano, and I'm here as a property owner and taxpayer to express my strong support for a tax rate and budget that pays our teachers and staff with dignity in their paychecks and a cost of living adjustment. I equally support funding for lower class sizes and money for our beloved teachers to get the support they need to teach with a pedagogy that speaks to our children's hearts and minds. I am not in support of our hard-earned money to be spent on contracts for scripted curriculum like Eureka and Amplify that are worksheet-driven and incorporate a lot of benchmarking. A scripted curriculum diminishes this value of quality education. Teachers should not be constrained by a curriculum-in-a-box model. A standardized curriculum does not meet the individual needs of students and is not a solution. Prioritize funding smaller class sizes for all campuses. Make tutoring available for learners who can't afford to pay for private tutors or enrichment classes. Pay our teachers and staff with a COLA and invest in our neighborhood schools. Thank you.
Our next item held for registered speakers is C1 personnel. Will Sarah Sandys please come to the podium? This speaker is also registered for C2 legal.
Good evening, everyone. I'm in District 7. 1 month after Hurricane Harvey, Winston Churchill's great-grandson spoke to HISD leadership about leadership. His 2-day course broke down how great world leaders communicate difficult topics to diverse and oft-divided people. Participants learned how Churchill and his great-grandson alike suffered from severe learning disabilities that nearly derailed both their adult lives. They heard how true leaders are transparent, accountable, have integrity, share power, and amplify the voice of the people over their own. The reassignment of Principal Salvador from Baker Montessori has shocked our community, and Cesar Martinez and his staff have proven they weren't paying attention in Churchill's class. I am a first-year HISD parent. This school year has been the first stable one my children have had since their father died. Arizona Jane and Jesse have lived through, like everyone, the last school year, and they require the stable principal leadership that Principal Salvador provides. If poor performance is truly the reason for Principal Salvador's reassignment, then my son Jesse is partly to blame. His learning
Our next speaker, ma'am, our next speaker is Roxana Yinas. Ma'am, you will be asked to leave. Roxana Yinas. Roxana Yinas. Can you please lower, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Like that. Good afternoon, my name is Roxana Cecilia Phillips, who attends Baker Montessori, and she has a few things that she'd like to say on behalf of her principal.
Please help us keep Principal Salvador here. She's the awesomest principal I've ever had.
Thank you. We live in Dr. Allen's district, and her grandparents live in Miss Wade's district and in Miss Dygard's district. And I'd just like to say that during the pandemic, Principal Salvador Sykes ensured that we all had the resources that we needed to get through the most difficult school year we've ever had. in recent history. And I think that her reassignment was rushed and ill-advised and will be a big detriment to the community that is trying to heal and move forward past the pandemic. And we're asking for her reinstatement as principal. Thank you for your time.
Next, we will hear from a registered speaker who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom regarding C1. Again, please remember that if you are signed up to speak via Zoom, we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. If you are watching the meeting live on another device, please mute the meeting audio when you speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. Ms. Trin, please admit Lilia Margarita Amaro.
We assume.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speakers is L1, the 2022-2023 Houston Independent School District Compensation Manual. Will Scott Parker please come to the podium?
I first want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak before the Board of Trustees and Superintendent House. My name is Scott Parker, and I want to thank all of you for the proposed compensation package. Everyone has worked very hard, especially during the height of this extraordinary and unprecedented pandemic known as COVID. We all deserve a raise. This is about taking care of the most precious asset of all businesses, including municipalities, whom are the employees. And school districts such as the Houston Independent School District indeed fit into that category. We the people that serve our future leaders of tomorrow. We the people that deserve to be treated with the utmost dignity and respect in all facets, including our pay. Again, my name is Scott Parker, and I'm speaking firmly and courageously on behalf of all of the employees and of the Houston Independent School District. Thank y'all.
Next, we'll hear from a speaker registered to address the board via Zoom regarding L1. Ms. Trin, please admit Christopher Williams.
Mr. Williams, please turn on your camera, unmute. You have 1 minute and you may begin.
Good evening, Superintendent and Board Trustees. My name is Christopher Williams, and I'm a teacher at Eastwood Academy. I have been teaching in HISD for 15 years, and I would like to thank Superintendent House and his staff for putting together a compensation manual that honors teachers and that does the work of helping to make HISD more competitive. And I urge board trustees to vote in favor of the compensation manual as presented, as it begins to do the work of helping to make HISD able to attract and retain great teachers in the district. Thank you for your time.
Our next item held for registered speakers is L2 Investment Report. Will Tracy Riley please come to the podium?
Good evening. I'm here today to ask you to please invest in our facilities and our teachers. Please don't be blinded by data and past requests for time allocated to board goal creation while real life is happening in our schools. And the last few blazing hot weeks, teachers and students in pre-K, K, and PALS at Lev Elementary sat in classrooms with no air conditioning. Teachers had to bring a change of clothes because they were sweating through their starter pair. Schools can't meet board goals and targets when they're busy moving students around constantly so that they can stay at a safe temperature. How about some facilities data? Where's our facilities condition index? We really need to make an investment and a focus on the HVAC in our schools and our crumbling portable buildings on so many campuses. We need data and more oversight and proactive communication about outdated work orders. Our teachers need raises and our students and staff need a safe place to learn. Please don't use data as an excuse. Please don't let our teachers and students suffer for Brian Busby and his team's past. It's time to take.
This concludes our hearing of registered speakers for agenda items. We are now ready to consider the superintendent's agenda items. For the record, let it be reflected that item B1 is both new and revised, and attachments to items G1, I1, I2, I3, and I10 have been revised. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. As defined in board policy BBFA local, a conflict of interest is any circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. We will now consider items held for abstention and/or discussion. Each month, all action items begin on the consent agenda. If a trustee would like an item held from consent, they need to notify Sylvia Trin by 8 a.m. on the Monday prior to the voting meeting. Trustees, as a reminder, everyone had an opportunity prior to this meeting to submit additional questions after agenda review to the administration. The Q&A document has been updated to reflect the additional questions. The updated Q&A was sent to all trustees via email, is in your SharePoint under June board meeting documents, and has been posted on the district website. Trustees have requested to discuss 2 discussion and report items. L1, the 2022-2023 Houston Independent School District Compensation Manual, and L3, the 2022-2023 Resource Allocation Handbook. In addition, trustees have requested the following items to be held from the consent agenda. A2, approval of the 2022-2023 recommended budget. I1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. Project 220201, RFP minor maintenance and repairs, like for like. Project number 21080623, cooperative agricultural and animal equipment supplies and services. And I10, acceptance of federal funds from the Texas Education Agency through the Every Student Succeeds Consolidated Federal Grant Application, Perkins V, Perkins 5, Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Grant Application, and the Special Education Consolidated Grant Application for the 2022-2023 school year in support of the district-wide and school-specific programs, and authorization to negotiate and amend grants. And I understand Trustee Hernandez would like to hold an additional item from the consent agenda. Trustee Hernandez, may I have a motion?
I move to pull item J1 from the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Second, Santos. We have a motion by Trustee Hernandez and a second by Trustee Santos. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? J1 is the annual legal firms that are approved for business with the district. Please vote. I'm sorry. 9-4-0 against, 0 abstentions. For each item of discussion, we will do one round of 1 minute each per trustee. If an additional round is desired, that can be done with a motion, second, and board vote. We will begin with the L items. And trustees, the L items, we actually don't vote on these because they are under the budget, but they were pulled for discussion. Trustee Dygard requested to discuss L1, the 2022-2023 Houston Independent School District Compensation Manual.
I just want to make a comment. Superintendent House and Chief Grant Skinner, thank you for your thoughtful compensation process and all of the hard work, or compensation plan and all of the hard work that you have brought forward on this. These raises are long overdue and critical to attract and retain quality employees, especially in a competitive teacher market. I don't believe it does enough, but I will still be supporting this, which now I know doesn't have a vote. I was proud to stand with you when you announced this a couple of weeks ago. But in addition to compensation, I hope you will also address the district culture that I think is an impediment, especially with our principals right now, to attract and retain in the culture of fear that I think they're struggling with right now. Thank you.
Trustee Wade.
Thank you, Trustee Cruz. Again, I'd like to reiterate what Trustee Dygart said. I fully support us compensating our staff and our teachers and all those involved in making HISD run on a daily basis. I want to thank the administration for listening to the staff, for the teachers, and to all the support staff and the administration in that regard. And like Sue said, I also want to say that it's important that we support our teachers in more than just fiscal manner. So I'm all for us looking out for those who lead our children. Thank you.
If you account for inflation, teachers have been making the same or less than they were a decade ago. So thank you to the administration for bringing much-needed overdue raises and a compensation package for our teachers and staff. I'm also very excited about the teacher incentive allotment and look forward to our district implementing this in the near future, and I would like to see more of this type of compensation. I requested to discuss L3, the 2022-2023 Resource Allocation Handbook. Our theory of action states if the district allocates resources equitably through a weighted student funding formula based on student characteristics and performance that distributes all resources to meet differentiated student needs, then campuses will be able to accomplish the board's student outcome goals while honoring the board's constraints. The budget we are voting on today will allocate funds to schools through our PUA system, which is money based on student need. Our PUA will not be cut to fund the compensation package or any other piece of this budget. Our PUA has slightly increased over the last few years, but this is mostly due to teacher salary increases. Schools do not have any more spending power than they did in the past. And I recognize that temporary spending through ESSER federal dollars will give schools more money, but it is not a long-term investment. In 2 years, that money will run out. I want to see schools have more spending power, and I'm also looking forward to the framework that will be developed that will provide support and give guardrails to schools and central office spending. Our first item held from the consent agenda is item A2, approval of the 2022-2023 recommended budget. This item is being held at the request of trustees Hernandez, Dygard, and myself. May I have a motion?
So moved, Santos.
We have a motion by trustee Santos and a second by trustee Hernandez. Superintendent House, do you have any information you would like to share?
Thank you, President Cruz. I do, and good evening, trustees. As we come to the close of our budget process for this upcoming school year, I wanted to take a moment to respond to a few of the concerns that the administration has heard from trustees over the course of the last few days regarding the budget, and as we get closer to a vote. I'd like to begin by discussing alignment of our budget with our goals and the data resources that we use to determine our strategies. As you've seen over the course of the last 7 workshops, we have, as an administration, focused a majority of our funds on, of course, in terms of change around compensation for this budget. Within our decentralized model, we empower principals to be able to lead decisions and be those decision makers on how those funds are ultimately spent at the campus level. A great deal of attainment of the board goals is dependent upon the expertise and leadership of our campus leaders as they drive the instructional practices that are aligned to the board goals. This budget makes a commitment to put more funds directly in the hands of our campus leaders, especially as they navigate leading, teaching, and learning and their campuses in the shadow, as we've heard from the audience, the global pandemic. We believe that this additional funding to schools will increase the ability of our school leaders to attain the 4 board goals that are laid out. This increase is in campus-based funds, and these increases include $50 million in additional discretionary ESSER funds to support our highest need campuses, an additional $36 million in campus-based discretionary ESSER funds that are specifically targeted for innovation, wraparound services, HB 4545 tutoring, and college and career readiness activities as well. It also includes $10 million in increases in reoccurring Title I dollars going directly to serve our highest need students, and $3.7 million of Title I funds going to campuses in the form of reading and math interventionists. This budget makes historic investments of $133 million in a comprehensive employee compensation package. Research shows that the quality of the teacher in front of the student is the most important lever that a school system has for accelerating student achievement. This budget not only makes a historic investment in our teachers, but our school leaders as well, and supports our support staff out there that we know is deserving of a raise as well. This compensation package will provide teachers a raise of 11% on average and will allow the district to maintain its status as one of the regional leaders among school districts for minimum wage, with most employees earning at least $15 an hour at the start of the upcoming school year. For HISD to attract and retain its staff at a time of national education labor shortages, we know it is imperative that we make this investment. Finally, this budget reduces centrally funded expenditures by $60 million. This is the largest central office reduction in recent history. As we know, the district faces a significant structural budget deficit, and we made this cut as a first step towards the path of fiscal sustainability, which we will discuss more in detail during this presentation. Although these cuts were difficult to make, we did so in a way that we believe will allow us to stay on track on our request to attain the board goals as you all expect as trustees. As you saw in the prior workshop, we are doing our best to be strategic in making the cuts, which we did, and we did so with students at the center of our focus. We understood the importance of student safety, so we did not make any cuts to our police department. We understood the importance of increasing financial supports and accountability, so we did not cut from our financial team. And we knew the importance of effective legal services, so we chose not to make cuts in that department either. Despite the challenges of decisions that had to be made during this time, we present this budget as one that puts students and one that we believe will allow us to attain the board goals. For the next few slides, you'll have an opportunity to see the board goal at the very top and some of the major strategies that we believe align to those board goals. As I shared with you, or with all of you in prior communications, these strategic strategies are not only supported by our general fund, but from our general or federal funds as well, as you heard us discuss so much about ESSER dollars. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the strategy, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see the data and that we leverage to determine that we use for that particular strategy. I will now go through through each strategy, but I'm not going to go through the strategy in detail, but we'll highlight a few on each slide. You've heard about our investment in expanding access in pre-K and increasing supports for our pre-K instructors. Some of that data that drove this work was through our partnership with HERC, maps of demand across the area, and work that we did with TNTP regarding their assessment of our curriculum and instruction practices. This investment was a priority given that the board also adopted a board constraint around pre-K ratios and access. Research does show a direct correlation between increased access to pre-K education and third grade literacy levels. Now, over the past few months, you've heard a great deal about our investment to shift to high-quality instructional materials in reading and in math, our TNTP curriculum assessment, our goal progress monitoring data, and the gaps that we saw really pushed us to ensure that we were providing on-grade level work for each and every student in our district. Hence, the investment to high-quality instructional materials and the restructuring of the academic department to support curriculum implementation. As I've stated before, our compensation package is a critical lever that we are investing to accelerate student learning. We not only leverage our compensation study here, but we looked at teacher retention, vacancy data, our talent office audit from the U.S. Human Capital Academy, focus groups of staff and listening and learn feedback. All of these different data points pointed towards a need to significantly increase compensation within our school district if we wanted to attract, retain the kind of teachers and staff that our students deserve. This led to a historic investment that you see before you in this budget today. Next slide, please. Many of the strategies that you see in Goal 2 at the top are similar to what you see in what you saw in the prior slide. This speaks to the cohesion of the strategic plan and the desire not to overwhelm our teachers and leaders with a myriad of new and different initiatives. The strategic plan is intended to be executed over several years and will implement our work both thoughtfully and strategically. What I'd like to highlight in this particular slide is our implementation of our Transformation Schools cohort. As educators, we know that scaffolding of knowledge is a critical aspect of math performance. It requires that a student receive a quality experience every day in their math classroom, every year after year, to perform at the level that we want and expect for them. The data, including Achieve 180 results, state accountability data, and walkthrough data, showed us that at too many of our schools, especially those with the highest needs, students were not receiving the quality experience that they deserve, and that something needed to be done differently. We have taken bold actions through the implementation of our Transformation Schools cohort to ensure that this vision becomes a reality for every student, independent of where they live or the zip code that they be moved to or reside in. We also heard loud and clear from our Listen and Learns, parents and family surveys, campus level data, and most powerfully, directly from our students, that mental health and safety were a high priority, especially returning to school post-pandemic. You have seen our investment in the fields through our investing in counseling, wraparound services, and the decision not to make cuts to our police department. Before students can learn, they must feel safe within their school environment. Next slide, please. As it relates to college and career, as well as military readiness, our decision to continue to expand access to advanced coursework, professional development for teachers, and college career counseling services is rooted in the success that the district has seen over the past years as it relates to many of our college and career metrics. Despite the pandemic, HISD continues to outperform many of its peers' college application submissions, which is something we're very, very proud of. Participation in AP, IB, and dual credit certifications as well, and the number of students earning certificates in career technical education. We used our extensive college application FAFSA submission, National Student Clearinghouse data, and CTE completion data to drive the investment in CCMR data that exists within this budget. Next slide. One of the top challenges that I inherited upon my entry into HISD were challenges within special education, as you know. The data and recommendations needed to improve systems existed, but in many cases, the execution simply was not there. Our team leveraged the audits that had been completed, as you're aware of, feedback from our listen and learn sessions, family survey feedback, curriculum feedback, focus group feedback to develop the strategies that you see before you. We partnered with an outside firm that you're aware of, which is SPED Strategies, to help support us with developing more efficient systems and strategies and systems to support our students with disabilities. Accounting for much of what you see in this page, we are beginning to see improvement in the board monitoring data as a result of the implementation efforts that we've moved forward with. We know we still have a ways to go to get to exactly where we want to be, but we believe that this budget puts us on the right track to increase our level of success. With that, I would now like to shift to an overview of our financial capacity improvement initiatives for the upcoming year. Now, over the course of the last several budget workshops, we have discussed a long-term need for fiscal transformation and have shared the fiscal transformation roadmap to see that you see on the screen in front of you. As I've reiterated through the budget development process, I am keenly aware that one-time funds that we are using to support many of our strategic investments are just that. They're one-time funds. These resources have allowed us to make major investments in our students and teachers, but we know that these funds are not permanent, and that's extremely important for trustees to know that we understand. Without significant changes, we will face a serious fiscal cliff in 24-25. As I have shared, I'm putting together a team to begin taking this monumental task on immediately. You've seen the beginnings of this transformation evidence through significant, again, central office savings initiatives, including in this budget, but the hard work, as we've said over and over, is still ahead of us. As we develop a long-term strategic plan to transform the district, we recognize the immediate need to improve our financial management and operational capacity. Working with our partners from A&M, we have developed and begun implementation on a capacity building plan which will lay the groundwork for transformation and sets up the district for success as we engage in phase 2 next year. Based on the needs of the district, the advice of my leadership team, including Chief Reed and others on in our cabinet, and the guidance of A&M, which I think Jim Grady is here somewhere, and they've been wonderful in this process. We've developed a series of near-term initiatives which will help us build the infrastructure we need to support the comprehensive financial transformation that this district needs and deserves, and that's best for our students. These 6 initiatives in front of you, outlined in greater detail in the coming slides, will strengthen the tools, processes, and financial capabilities of the district to build the capacity we need to navigate the highly sensitive process of transformation. In order to lead this transformational change, we know that we need new program management structures with owners who directly are accountable for the success of these initiatives. With that said, Deputy Rick Cruz will serve as the transformation officer and will serve as my direct line of sight in all of these important work streams. I have made it clear to my leadership team that the success of these initiatives is theirs as well. I have begun assigning internal initiative sponsors, of course supported by our partners at A&M, to champion each one of these work streams that you see. Now, on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see the organizational structure we've proposed, again with the guidance of A&M. As you may know, we've had some changes to our financial leadership team. We are beyond grateful for Chief Reed for his commitment and his service to the district, and we are fortunate that he will continue to work in HISD and champion many of the improvements in the new role that he will be in. With such big shoes to fill, we have already begun a national search to find a chief financial officer and are working to fill several key finance roles, which will be critical as a part of this process as we talk about success in this effort. We've also begun the most time-sensitive pieces of this initiative, which is based around our school support and federal funds. The following slides provide additional detail on activities and desired outcomes associated with each of these work streams, which we'll cover in just a moment in brief form. While I have come to appreciate the unique opportunities provided by our decentralized model since I joined the district this past summer, I've observed in many cases that the autonomy afforded to our campuses has not been matched with the appropriate levels of support. This school support training and accountability work stream is all about helping us to improve the training and supports available to our school leaders in order to support the efficiency and effective use of funds allocated under the weighted student funding model. As this initiative proceeds, this will provide the chief of schools and the chief academic officer with new transparency related to school funding to improve the allocations of resources. Now, nationwide, districts are struggling to allocate and execute the unprecedented amount of ESSER resources in the wake of the pandemic. For HISD, it is critical to ensure that ESSER funding is allocated and utilized efficiently and effectively, and most importantly, in an equitable manner. This initiative is intended to provide structure and organizational supports, which will help our team monitor ESSER investments and adjust programming based on student needs and program performance evaluations as well. As we have discussed before, understanding the return on investment of our resources is central to knowing that we are serving our students the way they deserve to be served. It is not enough to know. We need to know how and why we know. We need to be able to measure outcomes in order to achieve meaningful change for our students and our community. This doesn't happen, of course, overnight. Work streams will support HISD in strengthening its analytical capabilities, which link financial investments to academic and operational outcomes. Additionally, it will develop capacity within the district to inform investment priorities based on the cost-benefit analysis and enable us to evaluate outcomes of the district and its investments on a reoccurring basis. In the last 7 board workshops, you have seen our finance team and our partners work to give you the clearest and most precise view of the district's finances. While we've made great progress in understanding our finances for the next year, we need to implement systems and procedures which will give us a clear long-term view of the finances. Together with the support and partners at A&M, we've recognized trends related to budget precision, which have led to unexpected fallout and major discrepancies between budgets and actuals. We will work to refine our forecasting methodology to better account for major drivers and variances and deliver more accurate budgets, which will allow us to fully invest our resources in line with our strategies. Based on your feedback, we've taken decisive actions to reduce central office expenditures this year. However, we know that this cannot continue. We know that we can continue to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our departments by instituting a new approach for resource allocation that puts students and schools at the center of every decision that we make. HISD will design a new central office budgeting process which begins earlier and incorporates bottom up, as Danny and I talked about earlier today. This will strengthen budget justifications and review processes to provide us with information required to prioritize investments. Now, in order to maximize the value of both our existing insights and the new insights we gather from each of these work streams, we will work to establish improved reporting and analysis tools to guide the leadership team and the board in future decision-making. In this work stream, we will develop and constitute a suite of management and board-facing reports on a financial operational status of all major departments, as well as alignments between investments and strategies, strengths. The team will be able to create monthly dashboards, as you've seen, similar to our ESSER dashboard or the audit dashboard. We think this will be extremely as important as an opportunity to provide even more executive level transparency and decision support. I've taken several key steps to establish the oversight structure needed to take on these initiatives and serve as the core of my team as we take the larger long-term transformation. As I've mentioned earlier, Dr. Cruz will be the Chief Transformation Officer and will serve as my direct line of sight into all of the important work streams. I've established a program management office from which I will track progress and drive accountability. We have started the nationwide search, as I indicated earlier, for a new CFO. Finally, with the support of our partners, we've started the more time-sensitive initiatives related to school support training and accountability and federal fund oversight. Now, just a few updates to those initiatives before I end. Regarding the first initiative in reference to school support training and accountability, our team has drafted a gap assessment which includes feedback from principals, the central office budgeting team, and school support officers. This feedback will guide the recommendations for change. Now, when we talk about the federal funds and accountability work streams, as you know, we've launched the external dashboard that is viewable by the public. In addition to support the internal management of these funds, we've also developed several tools to help guide us in our decisions and decision-making for these funds and establish formal coordination and communication between the project managers, the researchers, and accountability team, and our federal funds office. This will be critical as we look to the start of assessing the efficiency of programs and shifting funds accordingly. Lastly, we have outlined preliminary timelines, including milestones, deliverables for each initiative, and are looking forward to sharing updates as we move forward in making progress. Madam President, that does conclude my comments.
Thank you, Superintendent House. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Trustee Wade.
So this initiative sponsors on page 10. Can you fill us in a little bit more about what that means?
You know, this as we received feedback from Alvarez and Marsal in terms of just really being able to track this and move in the right direction, there were recommendations around what this should look like from an organizational standpoint. And we feel good about, again, Dr. Cruz serving as the oversight individual that will focus on ensuring that this moves in the right direction.
Okay, but next to CFO, you have initiative sponsors. So what do you mean by sponsors?
Those are existing staff members. For example, Dr. Byrd may be a specific initiative sponsor.
Fair enough.
It may be Chief Watts that may be a sponsor of a particular initiative.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you. Oh, can I ask one more question while I still have time? What, will there be metrics, like, presented along with this timeframes that you have, the arrows, will there be some kind of guidepost for percentage metrics that we can look at or decided upon metrics that we can use?
One of the things that I've heard in the last couple of days from you and from others is much like we progress monitor from an academic standpoint, is some type of opportunity to provide updates on progress from a financial standpoint as well.
Okay.
And we are open to doing so, and we'll be working with our partner to build those kind of structures as well.
And you'll keep the board engaged in that conversation as well?
Yes, ma'am, that's the whole idea.
Thank you.
Trustee Hernandez?
Thank you. On page, oh, this one doesn't have a page number. 2 to 4. There is expansion of pre-K. Is there a certain amount that we are spending on the expansion of pre-K?
Yes, there is a particular amount, and I'd like to have Dr. Cruz to share some insight around our expansion efforts and amount as well.
Sure. Unfortunately, my memory is not that good, so I don't remember the exact amount. But yes, we are leveraging ESSER funds to help with building the capacity, training, building out classrooms, even from the operations side. Dr. Bird, if you have additional insight.
Right. It's about $1.3 million. I'm sorry. It's 19 classrooms, about $12.3 million for each year over the next several years. For this year, it's 19 classrooms.
Thank you. I would like to get that, like, the monetary amount for the strategies that are on this PowerPoint. I know there's a couple of pages on it, but I think it's good for trustees to know, like, hey, expansion of pre-K, we're spending this amount of money, so that we're aware of that.
And what I will say, Trustee Hernandez, specifically in reference to kind of increases, not necessarily to individual line items, but the budget provides an increase of $10 million in reoccurring Title I funds and $50 million in ESSER dollars in our most, of course, needed campuses that we talked about. And of course, many of our EL students are at these particular campuses, which I think is extremely important as well. This budget, as we've also talked about, includes ESSER projects specifically dedicated to improving the outcomes of EL students. I think that's something that we really need to. We actually talked about in our some previous cabinet meetings, and I think I talked to you a little bit about the curriculum. Yes, Dr. Bird and I, we talked to you a little bit about kind of where we were going with EL curriculum as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I still think it's important for us to know so that we can make sure that it's actually resulting in the results that we want in the future. And then, I mean, the same thing for the rest of it. I agree with one of the speakers today. I don't think that this budget is perfect. I would love to see for next year more changes. We spoke about how Magnet is inherently inequitable, that there could be changes to the PUA, et cetera. I would like to see what other changes could be made to the budget next year so that we can make sure that HISD is not only fiscally responsible, but that we are choosing the best for students.
Trustee Baker?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you and your staff again for the hard work you put in for this budget. I've always wanted to see increases in salaries and so forth. I have a couple of questions. We'll piggyback on what Ms. Wade said, Trustee Wade said. As you endeavor to show us in the future how finances are tied to metrics, is there a way that you could also put in your plan to do that on a monthly basis? Because I was told at one point you all were considering a goal to do something monthly with reading, and we know that reading is core to success of tests and everything. Could you answer that one first?
So from an academic standpoint, we have the progress monitoring that does happen on a consistent basis. I think what I've heard from a number of trustees is more so where we are from a financial reporting out standpoint, which is something that we like to bring to the table as we go through this fiscal transformation.
So what I'm trying to convey is on a month-to-month basis, or as you endeavor to apply the financial element, could we see how it's affecting the success? Is it increasing their learning or is it decreasing their learning compared to the money being spent?
So we can definitely take that into consideration.
Okay. Go for it.
Colleagues, any other questions? If not, I'll do. Okay, Trustee Dygard.
The deficit this budget creates should be approached with great caution, knowing Alvarez and Marcel will be assisting the district as it navigates the financial waters ahead, builds trust that there may be a viable bridge created before we hit the financial cliff. To be clear, the difficult decisions ahead due to the budget the superintendent has recommended to the board tonight will likely result in the closing of positions and possibly schools. It would be disingenuous to suggest otherwise, and the speaker earlier this evening was on point with his concerns. Superintendent House, if I vote for this budget tonight, it is on a hope and a prayer that you have brought the right recommendations to accomplish things like reversing the decline in achievement of our EL kids at all schools as evidenced by our Goal 2 Progress Report last month, or if the progress of our African American students that was demonstrated in the same report does not continue to grow. This is your budget recommendation and you will own the results of this budget. They are tied to your evaluation. If this budget recommendation was not appropriately aligned to the board goals, it will be reflected in your progress.
We definitely knew the mountain that we came in and climbed 11 months ago, and we're looking forward to climbing higher with each trustee, this community, staff, teachers, and look forward to the progress of our students as well.
Trustee Santos.
Thank you, President Cruz, Superintendent House. We cannot hope to serve the needs of our children by being close-fisted on the most important determinant of their success, high-quality professional educators. The most important expense of an organization should form the foundation of its budget, with everything else built around it, with whatever is left over. That is wrong-headed backwards thinking and backwards budgeting. And after 5 years of fighting for our teachers and support staff to get a raise that they deserve, I'm proud to stand with you, Superintendent House, and your administration, who has brought a budget that values our greatest treasure, our children. This budget honors our kids by honoring our teachers, support staff, and principals. It is past time for HISD to be the district that sets the standard in our region. I'm proud to be part of that team that gets us there. Pay teachers what they deserve, and you will get the teachers our kids deserve. Thank you.
Trustee Bluford-Daniels.
Thank you. I was going to hold my comments, and as I looked at data over the years, and I talk about that continuously, about the data that has impacted our children so negatively. And I hope that, as I listen to these comments, that the board determined what the goals were, and we submitted those goals to the administration, right? And with those goals, then we're saying that we're going to look at beginning of the year data, the middle of the year data, and the ends of the year tracking data to see if those goals are being met. If at the beginning of the year we have a benchmark, we have a starting point, the middle of the year, if they're not being met, then we have time to take a detour and say to the superintendent, you're not meeting these goals. And so our expectations are blah, 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 blah. What concerns me is, as I listen to the comments around the dais, is we've had issues in these schools for so long, and we haven't had that same emphasis and frustration with the outcomes that we've had in the past. Thank you for finally doing something different.
Trustee Allen.
Superintendent House, I am encouraged with this budget. The data is clear that competitive salaries will attract and retain qualified teachers. The potential pay increase is already attracting teachers back to the district. Research is very clear that a certified teacher in the classroom will definitely increase scores over vacancies, substitutes, or large class sizes. And I applaud your efforts. Our teachers deserve our best.
I have a couple of questions. So on slide 10, I'm really excited about these capacity building initiatives, and I look forward to the creation of dashboard and reporting for the board to see that. My question kind of goes along with what Trustee Wade asked in terms of metrics. So it's one thing to share, but I guess what is your expectation of when these things are going to be accomplished? I think is what maybe trustees are looking for in terms of metrics. And I also like what Trustee Baker is saying in terms of tying it to student outcome goals. And I'm definitely encouraged by many pieces of this budget. I definitely want to thank the administration for pursuing the adoption of high-quality instructional materials for math and reading. I'm also excited about the opportunity culture that will develop a stronger pipeline of talent for our classrooms. The big question that remains, will all of this result in higher outcomes for our students? I'm also encouraged by the cuts to central office, and I hope that we continue to look at cuts but not pass the bill into schools. And just really want to reiterate, and Superintendent House, you mentioned how critical this will be to address the budget. In a year or two, we're going to have to make very, very tough decisions. And I hope that those of you who are here advocating for raises will be the same ones that are advocating for balancing our budget. And I definitely support the raises. Thank you. Please vote, colleagues. Nine for, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Our next item held from the consent agenda is item I1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. This is for items 2022-0201, RFP, minor maintenance and repairs like for like at Trustee Allen's request, and project 21-080623, cooperative agricultural and animal equipment supplies and services held at Trustee Guidry's request. May I have a motion on project 22-0201 RFP, minor maintenance and repairs like for like? First a motion. Do I have a motion?
I motion.
A second?
Second, Hernandez.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Guidry and a second by Trustee Hernandez. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Trustee Allen?
I have a legal question.
Yeah.
Madam President, can we move to 21, what is it, 06, the one I pulled, and then maybe break for the legal question, if that's okay with you, Trustee?
Can we do it?
Yeah, you'll just have to, a motion and a second to go ahead and take up 2106, 080623.
I thought she called both of them.
I called both of them, but we only had a motion for one. So do I have a motion for 21-080623, cooperative agricultural and animal equipment supplies and services?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Allen.
A motion by Trustee Hernandez and a second by Trustee Bluford Daniels. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Trustee Guidry.
So Superintendent House, I submitted a question on this particular item, and I did receive a response, which is extremely interesting. So on the response, I asked what was the previous year's expenditures and it shows in 21, 64,000, and 22, 262,000. They're asking for a authority of up to $1 million, and I'm just not seeing how they got to $1 million. In fact, in 2022, the only reason we're at $262,000, based on the response that was given to me, is because Lamar requested $202,000 and received it above any other. The total amount spent was $326,000. And of that, 2/3 went to one school. The other 50,000 went to the CTE program. And so I'm just wondering, what is the justification for a $1 million increase when the initial request for 3 years was $285,000, and now it's being requested for 1 year an additional up to $1 million?
Trustee Guidry, thank you for your question. I'd like to have Procurement Alexis Licata to join me at the podium to share some insight around these purchases that are, if I'm not mistaken, up to the, or under the dollar amount.
I'm sorry. So Trustee Guidry, if I understood your question correctly, how are we getting to the not to exceed increase? The $1 million request?
Yes.
So, as you mentioned, yes, I believe the project total is at what we've spent thus far is $326,343.32. So we've already exceeded the initial $285,000, and that's the purpose of this item. We have to ratify the item, and then we need an additional increase to get us through July 31st of 2024. So the not to exceed increase of $1 million is not for 1 year, it's to get us through the term.
No, I fully understand that, but if essentially we were on an average of $60,000 per year, and the only reason we're at the 326 is because $202,000 was given to one school. I mean, where is the equity in that? And also,
Trustee Guidry, you're out of time. Did we do another minute? Yeah.
well,
No, this was.
You want to go ahead and ask some questions?
Trustee Hernandez.
So I think that part of where Trustee Guidry is getting to, and I'm not sure, because I haven't talked to her about this, but these are funds from Lamar's own funds, right? This is not district funds that then are given to Lamar.
So the report that I provided in the response, I had outlined under the campus or department where that funding, in terms of when we process a shopping cart in the procurement department, this is where the funding has come from. So I believe out of the $326,000, just over $49,000 was from the CTE department, and the remaining funds were from nutrition services and campuses.
Is there a reason why CTE and campuses are both using the same
project?
Yes.
The project is approved for various schools and departments.
I don't have any more questions.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
I know we've visited this before, and I'm just afraid that if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so, there's so much resistance and reservation when we see something associated with the same vendors as it relates to one of the voting items we've had previously. So it just concerns me that we want to build a trust relationship, and we want to be transparent. And I've always said, and I think that you may agree for the last 2.5 years, I have a problem with that various school and departments, that utilization for those RFPs, because I'm always concerned about how that I know some things will have to say various schools and departments, but when we're talking about $1 million, when it's broken down for various places or in any one of the RFPs, I'd just like to see where it's spent so that I can feel comfortable that everybody's getting an equitable amount, and the same ones are not getting the money all the time.
Okay, trustees, that concludes our time, unless there's any, you already used up all your time, Trustee Guidry.
I'd like to make a motion for round 2, please.
Second, Hernandez.
We have a motion by Trustee Guidry and a second by Trustee Hernandez. Please vote. This is to extend to a round 2. Eight, 4, 0 against, 1 abstention. Trustee Guidry.
To answer my colleague, Trustee Bluford Daniels, there was a response to a request I did that does outline the expenditures to the schools, and you will see that those funds are not being equitably provided. But my question is, again, if we're getting through year 2024, and I understand that there was a $202,000 payment to one school, but everybody else, the total was $60-something thousand. So why are we asking $1 million instead of another $285,000? Why are you asking for that threshold? And I'm asking if there's a way. I'm trying to get to yes. I'm not going to get to yes at $1 million. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I might be able to get to yes at a lower amount since we've already expended the $285,000 initial request.
And Chief Reed, if you don't mind sharing some insight in reference to the budget allocation piece here that hopefully will clarify some of this.
Sure. So what I'm kind of hearing is that this is, the folks are seeing this amount not to exceed as a budget allocation. This is not a budget allocation. This is not us giving dollars to a campus and saying, here's $1 million for you to spend on this project. This is the board approving campuses and departments to use that vendor with their dollars that are budgeted. So the schools have dollars in their budget. So one school might spend 60, one might spend 100, but it comes from their dollars, from their PUA dollars, and they choose to say, I'm going to go use this vendor to buy from this contract. The $1 million just says, this is how much you can spend. We could put $100 million on every single one of these board items. Doesn't mean we have it in the budget to spend, right? It's just an authority to spend those dollars. So it's not that, it doesn't mean the dollars are actually sitting out there in someone's budget and we're going to spend that $1 million. It's just, you can spend up to this amount, but you have to have money in your budget to buy from it.
I get it. I do understand that, but still feel the same way. Thank you.
Trustee Baker.
Yes, Superintendent, it's my understanding, based on our previous discussions in previous meetings, that your future plan is to coach those campus managers or principals that are not as, used to managing and requesting CTE funds, as well as in other districts, and in going in that direction will improve the equity, so to speak, of everything in the future?
That's correct. We want to make certain that if we need to revisit the process of ensuring that, first of all, people know what's available and know what the necessary systems and processes are to be able to look at programs that align to the needs and the data in their particular school, that we do so. We are looking at, as we talked about in the presentation that I shared earlier, principal and administrator training to focus on not only CTE but also other elements of the budgeting process as well.
Thank you for that, and I think that's very important because this has been a discussion for quite some time, and I appreciate you clarifying that. And as I said in the last meeting, hats off to you and your staff, because one thing you've never said is, I don't know. So thank you.
Trustee Dygard.
First, a comment. This was a struggle for any new board member to understand how this works, and so reminding me of your comment last week, I think maybe there could be an opportunity for training for the board on this process. Two questions. What happens, Mr. Superintendent, what happens if this does not pass?
Ms. Legata, if you would share what this means if this does not pass? Means
So because it's a ratification, we wouldn't have the remaining money to pay the vendor, pay the vendors for anything over the $285,000. So we have to ratify at a minimum the amount that we've gone over the contract. If the board doesn't approve any additional amount, then we wouldn't have any vendors to utilize for any type of FFA program, any type of horticulture program, any type of animal science program for campuses or departments.
So it's approved right now, the not to exceed amount is something, and you're raising the not to exceed amount, correct?
correct.
So is it only so that first bucket is available to campuses, this new amount would not be available to campuses if it fails. Is it only Lamar High School that would it be available to, or all of the other campuses that may want to use this vendor for their?
It's open to any campus or department to utilize.
Trustee Hernandez.
I think in the future, it would be very helpful for this table that was provided instead of CTE. It was specified where CTE spent those funds on which campuses. I understand that, every campus is going to focus on a different area. So some campuses are probably spending a lot more on fine arts than they are on agriculture and animal equipment. But this chart that was provided, it would be very helpful if it was the CTE allocations were actually allocated by campus. Is that possible? I mean, I don't need it right now, but just.
I have it right now. Superintendent, if
Yes,
you'd like for
ma'am.
me to share.
Please do.
Sure. So for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 CTE line items, one line item was for Booker T. Washington, one line item was for Lamar High School, one line item was for Worthing, one line was for Wisdom, another line item was for Lamar, and the last, I'm sorry, I don't have the last line item.
Trustee Santos. Trustee Allen.
I'd like to make a motion that the amount not to exceed be lowered to $500,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Wait,
Guidry.
I had a question before this. Well, I guess I can ask it.
We have a motion by Trustee Allen and a second by Trustee Guidry. Comments or questions? Trustee Santos.
Thank you, President Cruz. Superintendent House, this is the recommendation that the administration has proposed, that you have proposed. This is what y'all need to be successful.
This is what, we believe this is what schools need to provide for the students to be successful.
So
The up to amount.
up to $1 million. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Allen, you were in the queue from before. Trustee Hernandez?
From my recollection of the topic that we discussed, this topic from last time, we've already overspent the 285. We're already at like 400,000 or 500,000, correct?
We're at 326,
Yes.
343.
Can you share that amount again?
Yes, $326,343.32.
43. Okay. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Please vote. So we're voting on the motion made by Trustee Allen for the amount not to exceed $500,000. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
2 for, 7 against, 0 abstentions. So now we need to vote on the actual. Okay, so now we are back to voting on. Yeah, but that was on the other motion, on the other item. So this is we're voting on project 21080623, Cooperative Agricultural and Animal Equipment Supplies and Services. We already did a motion for that one, right? Okay, so please vote.
We voted on that RFP.
On the actual RFQ, yeah. 7 for, 2 against, 0 abstentions. The board will now adjourn to close their executive session under chapter.
Point of order, can I move that we finish the balance of these other items and then go into closed session for that item? Like finish out all the other stuff while we're out here and then go discuss the closed site? Can I?
You can
Would my
either-
colleague who requested closed session be open to that? Just trying to be efficient. Yeah. Okay. It takes us 5 minutes to get there, 5 minutes. Can we just second that? Can I second your motion?
The board will now adjourn to close their executive session under Chapter 551 of Texas Government Code, Open Meetings Act, subsections 551.004.072.074.076.082.081.083.084.089. Should board final action, vote, or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action, vote, or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting or at a subsequent public meeting of the board upon notice thereof. The board has adjourned to close their executive session at 6:37 p.m. on June 9th, 2022. And for the public, we do the hearing of the community no later than 7 p.m. So we pause whatever we're doing. p.m. We will now conduct our hearing of the community so that speakers may be heard no later than 7 p.m. in accordance with board policy. Only those who registered by noon yesterday may speak this evening. Copies of handout materials must have been provided to board services by noon yesterday. We have 20 registered speakers remaining this evening. Speakers are limited to 1 minute each. I'd like to remind speakers that when addressing the board, please stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. However, naming your own child is permissible in the course of stating your concern. The board encourages and welcomes comments and inputs from our community, but we cannot respond to or deliberate on any subject that is not included on the posted agenda. That is, the board cannot deliberate or respond directly to a speaker in this format. While the board listens to concerns of a general nature, speakers should practice normal rules of decorum. Obscene language and profanity will not be tolerated, as this is a public meeting and our students are watching. Additionally, disruptions of the meeting will not be tolerated. We ask the audience to refrain from interrupting speakers while they present to the board during this portion of the meeting. We will begin with registered speakers who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom. Again, comments are limited to 1 minute each, and each speaker's Zoom connection will be terminated at that time. Please remember that we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. For those Zoom speakers who are watching the meeting live on another device, be sure to mute the meeting audio when it is your time to speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. Ms. Trin, please identify and admit our speakers.
Kevin Sparks, thank you for your patience. You may turn on your camera, unmute. You have 1 minute and you may begin.
Hello. As a parent, I'm asking the board to use your power to reinstate the principal of Baker Montessori. On Sunday, our community was shocked to hear that Principal Salvador was reassigned involuntarily and with no rationale provided. She's an awesome principal. She delivers results. She has all the intangibles that you would want in a leader. The parents love her, students love her, the teachers love her. And I've heard you guys talk tonight about all the important things of providing more than salary. You provided the brave decisions to approve the school budget and teacher raises. That's awesome. Please listen to the teachers and what they need and what they want to help keep our school a great place to learn and grow. And you have the opportunity to be our heroes today. Please look into the situation and help us keep her as our principal. Thank you.
Grant Turley, please turn on your camera, unmute. You have 1 minute and you may begin.
Hello, I am the parent of a neurodivergent student who attends Baker Montessori. I demand, along with the other parents who've spoken today, that you immediately reinstate Ms. Salvador as principal of Baker Montessori. Failing to do so is an unjust mistake that will only continue to damage the trust between the institution of HISD and the Baker community. When my son first began attending Baker, his behavior was very problematic, to put it kindly. Principal Salvador handled this with incredible grace and patience. She worked as a unified and loving force with the teachers. I always knew that I could count on her being there to help him. Because of this fact, not only did his behavior improve, but his academics improved. He was able to go from a student who at the beginning of this year couldn't read to now.
Thank you, your time is up. Madam President, those are all the speakers that signed up for this hearing of the community via Zoom.
Thank you, Ms. Trin. Next, we will hear from speakers appearing live in our auditorium. We ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall is to your right on the and on the podium will count down your time and will signal when your time is up. I ask that you please respect our procedures and the other speakers and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Would George Caldwell please come to the podium? As I call the next three names, please take a seat on the front row. Sister Mama Sonia Lucas Roberts, Katrina Moore.
My name is George Caldwell, and I've taught in Houston for 19 years. My current assignment is with Community Services. I teach at Texas Children's Hospital, and my students experience challenges of fighting cancer, receiving heart and lung transplants, eating disorders, and traumatic brain injuries. Because of this, I support the budget. However, I am concerned about the T-test evaluation system because for teachers and community services, the growth measures that we have will not be equitable, and the access to the incentive allotment program will not be fair to the teachers who are in community services. Finally, I'm here to express my disdain for a politically charged email that I received on May the 26th. I received this email from the president of HFT, Jackie Anderson, the president of the Houston Federation of Teachers. She used the murder of 19 students and 2 teachers to rally support for their members to come to this meeting tonight to demand a 10% across-the-board raise. I urge every teacher to leave HFT that takes over $600 a year from you and join Texas Teachers. It's only $150 a year.
Sister Mama Sonia Lucas Roberts, Katrina Moore, Shamusi Balugan.
Remembering Uvalde and Buffalo. Host students at Bel Air who made the racist monkey sounds and racist gestures received some sort of disciplinary actions. Their parents said they were just young kids and they didn't know what they were doing. They meant no harm. Buffalo, Uvalde. They were young people also. Not saying the Bel Air kids are going to do the same thing, but they need to know that what they did was wrong and that racist behavior should not be tolerated by students in HISD. At least I hope not. Please don't forget to change the name of Delmar Stadium. It needs to be changed from this racist trustee. It might as well be named the KKK Stadium. Dismiss us, ignore us. Do you ever listen to us? We hope you really care about us. Have a great year, and we look forward to seeing you in September. I'll be back.
Katrina Moore, Shamusi Balugan, Adam Blair.
Trustees, Superintendent House, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I'm here to speak on behalf of my principal, Principal Shamika, who at this time is scheduled to be reassigned to a different department, or to a different school. As I thought about her, what came to mind is 5 principles of authentic leadership: understanding the purpose, practicing solid values, leading with the heart, establishing connected relationships, and demonstrating self-discipline. And that is who Principal Shamika is. And through the warmth of that authentic leadership, she's been a light to our community that I personally believe that has warmed us as a community, from staff to the PTO who's here today, as well as to the general Baker community, to give everything we have to make sure that every student at Baker becomes everything they were meant to be. And I'm asking you, I'm imploring you, please don't snuff out her light and remove her from our campus. Thank you.
Adam Blair, Tish Ochoa, Sam Smith.
Good evening, I'm Adam Blair. I'm a teacher at Baker Montessori and a parent. The district's position on providing Montessori education for all, like Baker Montessori, is under constant threat due to HISD's leaders scrutinizing our Montessori pedagogy and vastly differing learning sequence through a very narrow traditional lens. Our district's traditional lens is what determines the constructs of HISD's scope and sequence and subsequent district assessments such as snapshots and DLAs. These assessments do not accurately reflect the progress of Montessori schools nor the effectiveness of our principal. Every year, district officers throw up red flags when they see low snapshot and DLA scores, then cheer for our principals when they see improvement in our STAR scores. This is a predictable pattern. It's because our scope is aligned, but our sequence is not. If HISD wants to continue to provide an equitable path for all students to receive free Montessori.
Tish Ochoa, Sam Smith, Travis Fife.
In the last week of school, the Baker community received notice that our much-loved principal was being reassigned. 72 hours later, district leadership called staff and parent meetings to discuss principal selection. Instead, our community begged for answers. We relived the traumas of the past 3 years in hopes of gaining understanding. District leadership refused to answer a single question. When Area Superintendent Martinez did speak, it was to smugly tell our community that we would never know what happened and to deride a parent of color for not being professional. Baker met all academic targets for the year. Preliminary STAR data tells us that our kids made huge gains, which were celebrated by district leadership over email. Our principal hit every target, and they moved her anyway. By allowing these personal attacks to continue, you are complicit in a culture of fear and retaliation. If a mid-level manager is allowed to tear our community apart, how would I ever support Bond?
Sam Smith, Travis Fife, Ashton Millett, please refrain from audible noise.
You come to our community, you replace principals with our community input and parent input. The principal of Keep Middle School, she's leaving. Then you send us the principal at North Forest High School who don't have control of the school at all. Parents and community members are sick and tired of it. You can stop ignoring us. We are requesting a new principal. They have students who say they will not be graduating. I'm asking the district to do an audit and see what's going on at that school. Every day they have MATs on the campus. The principal she let go of the whole special aid department and counseling. I'm asking you to look into the situation and see what's going on. We are requesting a new principal at North Forest High School. And then you place a principal at Wheatley High School. The principal, the same principal who had me escort over campus when I represent a parent. Do we really want a principal on that campus like that?
Travis Fife, Ashton Millett, Sadrach Turwo.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Superintendent House and HISD board members. My name's Travis Fife. I am a civil rights attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project. We work across the state of Texas as advocates and lawyers, boldly serving Texas communities. I'm here before you tonight to ask this board to do a community-based review of HISD's Student Code of Conduct. I don't think I need to explain to you all, but decades of research show that exclusionary discipline, early contact with police, and other forms of punitive actions at schools drive students out of school, increasing dropout rates, increasing contact with law enforcement as adults, and disproportionately target our Black and brown students. Over the last several years, HISD has made strides to improve mental health supports, social emotional learning, and provide wraparound services.
Ashton Millett, Sadrach Turwo.
Good afternoon, members of the board and members of the administration. My name is Ashton Millett, and I'm an organizer with One Houston. We are a network of over 2,000 students, teachers, parents, and community members. One Houston and many of our community partners have been in conversations with the board over the last 2 years about school safety and policy changes to improve the learning experience for all students. The shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde CISD that took the lives of 19 students and 2 teachers is all of our worst nightmares. And as a former teacher, I know our community grieves this collective trauma. The CDC guidance explains that school connectedness reduces risky behavior, emotional problems, and violence among students. This means that school connectedness not only makes schools safer, but makes students feel safer at the school. I urge the board to take steps towards safer schools and increasing school connectedness through restorative practices and social emotional learning inside of the student code.
Sadrach Turwo, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Coffee Elbay, and Art Smith.
My name is Sadrach Turwo. My son attended Sam Houston MSDC. His teacher, Mr. Patrick Pickler, he was his chemistry teacher. He was also a writer for About Magazine, an LGBTQ magazine. he published a article with a lot of students, on them without authorization. He recruited my son. He also took my son to a drag show when he was underage. He took him to a drag show when he was underage, and it was really bad. It was a really bad experience. He also put him next to this sex offender while he was out there with my son. There's a lot of stuff that nothing got done. I have a lot of info, a lot of videos, text messages. Police, HISD has a lot of messages. It's really bad.
Coffee El Bay, Art Smith, Xavier Hagan.
HISD have a lot of incompetent employees here in employee relations and board services. One name is Jashonda Hamilton, and Monique that's in board service, the receptionist. It's a lot of corruption, conspiracy.
Ma'am, you can't name
It's
individuals.
a lot of corruption, conspiracy, and cover-ups going on. A 5-year-old got assaulted by a male teacher, HISD employee at elementary school. They trying to cover up everything. When you file a grievance, they violate the grievance process. You come here to take care of business, they think they're at home. Like it's a private educational institution. This is a public educational institution. When you come here to take business in reference to a child, they want to protect an adult that's in the wrong that assaulted a 5-year-old on a campus. And that's just wrong. So I don't know if they have any training prior to COVID-19 or if they're getting any training now during COVID-19, but they need some.
Art Smith, Xavier Hagan, Dr. Pamela Bovland.
Say that, for me to be able to know that Mr. House and the school board trustee was at Phyllis Wheatley High School on the 11th of May, the way they brought Cuba King in, that was a violation and total disrespect to the entire Fifth Ward community, the history of Phyllis Wheatley High School. We celebrating our 95th anniversary, and some paperwork was filed here at the school board on Cuba King on May 6th. 5 days later, she was awarded principal of Phyllis Wheeler High School. Mr. House, you said multiple times today about feedback from this and feedback from that, and you gathering all this here. Where is the feedback from the teachers, the staff, and the students from Phyllis Wheeler High School? Where is that? Because the process, the way you hired Cuba King, that's a violation. No one heard from it. We can't accept the bullet tactics of y'all just bringing us someone who has no credentials from a... And just going to get the Wheeler job. Why we didn't have a town hall meeting? Why we didn't get a chance to get the feedback?
Xavier Hagan, Dr. Pamela Bovland. Sir, Mr. Smith, your time is up. Xavier Hagan, Dr. Pamela Bovland, Judy Chang.
I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she was assaulted at NACU Henderson. HISD staff, Ladette. My daughter haven't been back to school since April 28. She was scared to go back to school. She did not want to see him or nothing like that. My daughter didn't even get the jar end of the school year. My 4-year-old son in the same class of her, he's seen everything. He was telling Miss Adette, stop. Give my sister back to me. She couldn't do nothing. She was just crying. She said, my 9-year-old walked past the cafeteria. She was calling for help. Can nobody help you? Your sister can't help you. Like that's her first year in school in pre-K. And now she just don't want to go back to school at all. And it's like, I'm sad because I walked in on that while he was doing it to her. And it's just, I don't know. It's just.
Dr. Pamela Bovland, Judy Chang, Lucia Moreno.
First off, before my minute runs out, I want to be in support of the parents and teachers at Baker Montessori. You should reassign the principal to their school. She's a dedicated person, and I don't know what happened, but let's fix that. And I also want to support the superintendent's budget. Nobody had problems. There were no threats to the superintendent on previous budgets when they closed all the schools in our community. So don't take any of that seriously. We're not going to let that happen. It amazes me when we start putting money into our schools, then suddenly we're worried about a financial cliff. We can fix the cliffs before that, but we can't fix the cliffs when the money's going to our schools. Lamar's got $200,000 to spend on something. Yates doesn't have $200,000 to spend on anything. So we need to really keep that in mind, all of those people.
Judy Chang, Lucia Moreno, Case Mundi.
Thank you. So children are the reasons that why we're here in this room today. And even with the district leadership in constant turmoil, my children had great opportunities at their schools with the principals who practice children first and the teachers who has freedom to teach and be trusted. So I applaud you to support the teachers and support staff who touch our children's life every day with the pay raise today. But I also ask you to please start the transformation process by stop instilling the culture of fear at the district level. Listen to the people at school who are with our children every day, and listen to your students. And while you have assessments for the students, you have measurements for the teachers, for the principal. What happened when the
Lucia Moreno, Case Mundi.
I'm here to speak as an ex-teacher. HISD was my home and my community for many years. You see, for those that have not taught, they don't know we have an investment in our community. When we say we represent the students, we really do. Your predecessor bullied, harassed, and ran many good teachers away just for speaking out. Don't you want teachers that have invested time and love in your kids? Give us the time and listen to us. My ex-students, the majority are doing very well. One will be interning for the mayor and advocating in DC for student safety. Others in magnet schools and some in local schools with 4.0 GPAs. They interviewed President Biden in person, or House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and invited to attend the Democrat debate. Did they learn? Yes, they all learned. They learned they have a voice. Why? Because we were given a door to go through, to see the door to the world outside your community.
Case Mundi.
And I hope you have time to speak to me.
Hello. My name is Case Mundy, and I represent the community of Wainwright Elementary as the PTA president. When my pre-K daughter's teacher has been absent this year, 20 plus 4 and 5-year-olds have been distributed in adjacent and grade higher classes, exponentially increasing learning loss for all. I believe part of the solution to the known shortage of subs is to recruit from the local community in and around each school. This would require a modification to the current system or creation of a separate tier of associate teacher. Adjustments could be made to the requirements of associate teachers to increase the candidate pool. The minimum number of days worked per month could be lowered from 8 to 4. The requirement of a bachelor's degree or 60 hours of college credit should be at least temporarily lifted. While I recognize the merit of associate teachers seeking higher education, any responsible adult would be better than no substitute. I recently attempted to help a friend apply for a substitute position. There were no general positions for subs listed on the district careers page. I emailed the district and was bounced around to 4 different email addresses before I accidentally found a different application site mentioned within an automated reply. The process of applying needs to be straightforward, known by HISD staff, and marketed to the public.
This concludes our hearing of the community. Trustees, we're going to go back to Project 220201, RFP minor maintenance and repairs like for like. Trustees, please vote. The one minor maintenance repairs like for like, the one Pat had a question on. 9-4-0 against, 0 abstentions. Our next item held from the consent agenda is item I-10, acceptance of federal funds from the Texas Education Agency through the Every Student Succeeds Consolidated Federal Grant Application, Perkins 5, Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Grant Application, and the Special Education Consolidated Grant Application for the 2022-2023 school year in support of the district-wide and school-specific programs and authority and authorization to negotiate and amend grants. This item is being held at the request of Trustee Dygard. May I have a motion?
So move, Santos.
Second, Hernandez.
I have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Hernandez. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Trustee Dygard?
Since I pulled this, mine I'm ready to vote. It's fine.
Okay. Please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Our last item held from the consent agenda is item J1, consideration and approval of the 2022-2023 panel of law firms to provide legal services. May I have a motion?
So move, Santos.
Second, Hernandez.
I have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Hernandez. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Please vote. Six, 4, 0 against, 3 abstentions. We are now ready to consider the balance of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus?
So move, Santos.
Second,
Guidry.
Hernandez.
We have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Guidry. Please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. We are now ready to consider items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions?
I move that the board approve the settlement in the matter of Danielle Nicole Nixon versus HISD in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas, civil action number 420 CV 01699, on the terms discussed in closed session effective June 10th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second, Guidry.
We have a motion by Trustee Bluford Daniels and a second by Trustee Guidry. Please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
I move that the board authorize the district to settle a special education matter regarding Kyandria WESYKITAL versus HISD, SOH docket number 701222247, IDEA TEA docket number 195, SE 0322B, on the terms discussed in closed session effective June 10th, 2022.
Second, Guidry.
I have a motion by Trustee Bluford Daniels and a second by Trustee Guidry. Please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
I move that the board approve the closed session personnel agenda, including specifically that the board approve proposed terminations of continuing term and probationary contracts, approve end of term, termination of probationary contracts, that the board approve proposed non-renewals of term contracts, that the board approve issuance of fourth-year probationary contracts, and that the board authorize the superintendent or his designee to provide notice of same, that the board approve separation and release agreements, that the board approve withdrawals of contract recommendations, and that the board approve issuance of final orders on contract terminations and non-renewals, as discussed in closed session effective June 10th, 2022.
Second, Guidry.
I have a motion by Trustee Bluford Daniels and a second by Trustee Guidry. Please vote.
Try to pronounce that name.
We're missing a couple of trustees. Please vote. 9-4-0 against, 0 abstentions.
Yeah.
Is that all of the motions? Trustee Bluff, okay. Thank you. No, it's okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular monthly board meeting held on May 12th, 2022, and the special meeting held on May 26th, 2022?
So move Santos.
Second Hernandez.
I have a motion by trustee Santos and a second by trustee Hernandez. Please vote. Oh, me. 9-4-0 against, 0 abstentions. Mr. Superintendent, do you have any reports for us at this time?
Madam President, I know that we've focused a lot over the course of the last several months on what the future should look like in HISD. And what I'd like to do over the next just few minutes is share what has happened this school year as we end this year on a very positive note. I will send this out in the form of a deck as well so that you will have it to reflect on. I want to remind us that in terms of school opening and safety, the district was able to develop a comprehensive COVID school safety plan in very short order. We also successfully opened all schools for in-person instruction on the first day of school. And as we reflect back in the previous year, it was a very difficult time, and having the opportunity to move forward was a very important milestone. Also under school opening and safety, we delivered a virtual instruction program to students with compromised immune systems, temporarily deployed hundreds of central office staff as we remember to assist with teacher vacancies and maintain one of the lowest COVID positivity rates in the state at 1.5%. When we talk about executive leadership and just items that I'm proud of this school year, we assembled, in my opinion, one of the most talented district leadership teams in the country. We also reorganized district to increase the efficiency and alignment. As you know, we've talked about quite a bit the strategic plan and how thoughtful we've gone through a process to get the kind of feedback to build the commitments that we've built, those 6 commitments. When we talk about academics, there's been a lot of work that's been focused on as well. We significantly increased the access to tutorials and academic interventions. We began the process of adopting high-quality instructional materials and curriculum that you've heard about. We saw significant gains in post-secondary readiness and access, revamped special education services across the district, and delivered over 750,000 wraparound interventions and services to students. When we talk about human capital as well, we conducted a comprehensive audit of the district's human capital strategy and began transition to a new teacher appraisal system. And on top of that, under human capital, we developed a new compensation plan that was approved this evening as a part of the budget. School transformation has been a big part of this work as well this school year, planning for implementation of the ACE model and implementing broader turnaround initiatives in the form of the RISE, establishing 21 new magnet programs and participating, as we've talked about earlier, in the System of Great Schools sponsored by TEA. In the area of finances, we've worked closely with our partner in Alvarez and Rosal to improve district finances and practices, working on improving areas such as principal budgetary training, budgeting precision and forecasting, and procurement, and great alignment between budget and district improvements. I thought it was just important just to share a reflection back because we've talked so much about the future. I do feel good about the future, but I also feel good about the last 11 months in working with this board, working with this staff, and working with this community. We look forward to doing it again starting the 22-23 school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent House. We are now ready to hear reports and comments from board members. Trustees, please limit your time to 1 minute per trustee. We'll start on this end over here.
As a former teacher, I'm super glad to see the compensation package passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. House, for putting that forward, and have a safe summer, everyone.
In the vein of public trust and transparency, I hear you, Jackie, who came earlier to speak about those pornography books in the schools. Safety is number one. We got to get safety and make it and keep it a priority. Student code of conduct, I hear you. I want to let you know, Mr. and Mrs. Public, I hear you. While we're grateful for the raise, we got to keep those things as a priority. Congratulations to all graduates in advance. Happy Juneteenth, and have a great summer. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for the thoughtful compensation plan. It is very long overdue. I am grateful that it was thought out by the administration and proposed by y'all, and we weren't doing it at the 0 hour and amendments at the table. I look forward to working with all of my colleagues and you, Mr. House, with our board coach. I think that will really help improve the work that we do for students, and everybody have a great summer.
Thank you. I was trying to make my notes. Anyway, happy 86th birthday to my mother, Esther Jean Sheffield Ballard, on yesterday. Congratulations, Ashton Millett, on your wedding vows. And I want to say, Trustee said last week or a couple of weeks ago, we've learned a lot through this process, and we have learned a lot through this process. And I think that both can say with all honesty that we've been more transparent and we've asked more of the necessary questions that we had not asked before. Obviously, with the mass shootings in Uvalde, my heart breaks as a mother of a murdered child. 22 deaths in Uvalde. Those voices have been silenced.
Trustee Santos.
Thank you. This is the first year that there are no budget amendments at the table. And Superintendent House, to you and your team, thank you for honoring Team HISD. I'm incredibly proud to be part of the team that brought you here to HISD. And in less than 1 year, you've completed what I've been trying to accomplish for the last 5 years. And this is the first time I'm ever going to use this term. I've never used this term. But Team of 10, I'm incredibly proud of us. We're able to come together for our students. Happy Pride Month, happy summer, stay safe, everyone. And to our teachers, support staff, principals, I honor you, I respect you, and I value you. Thank you.
I'd like to give a shout out to all of our HISD graduates. We are so, so proud of you. Thanks to all of the campus workers, administrators, teachers, principals, APs for this past year. We know it was difficult, and we thank you all for hanging in there. Superintendent House and administration, I like the rest of my colleagues, thank you so much for all the hard work you all put in, but you all do know we have more work to do. To my colleagues, last but not least, I want to thank you all and let you all know it is a pleasure working with you. Of course, we have different opinions, but what we're learning to do is listen to one another and learning how to agree to disagree. And I so, so appreciate that. Now that I'm going to ask you all, let's get this excellent student outcome, equity, and safety pieces right. Have a great summer.
Wishing all a wonderful summer. I thank you for all the people that come and voice their opinions and their thoughts and their feelings. They take their time away from their families to come up here and spend their time with us. I appreciate the staff and all who are accountable to make this district run. I appreciate our leadership for meeting us where we've been asked you to meet us, and we appreciate that. I want to thank my colleagues for our time together and in the future ahead. And I also want to thank or congratulate all those graduates. Like everyone else said, what a wonderful occasion. Thank you much. God bless.
I want to wish all of those HISD students, staff, and teachers, go out and enjoy your summer. Make sure you do a lot of self-care. I look forward to the graduations this weekend and want to say congratulations to the class of 22. And I want to say thank you to Superintendent House for getting us up and on our way in a positive manner with our new budget. Thank you.
Y'all, this is the first meeting I can remember in my memory that there were no amendments in quite a while. So this is the first time we've had a budget vote with no amendments. So kudos to everyone, and maybe it was because we had so many budget workshops, Mr. House. I'm really excited about graduation this weekend. I think I have the most graduations of any trustee, but I really, really do enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to celebrating. And just want to say my heart is with the Milby family during this time of their loss. La próxima reunión de la mesa directiva será el 11 de agosto y la reunión de revisar la agenda será el 4 de agosto. We look forward to seeing you at our next regular board meeting on August 11th, 2022. Agenda review for that meeting will be held on August 4th, 2022. There being no further business, this meeting is officially adjourned at 7:42 p.m. Buenas noches.